Getting hit multiple times coming out of that bike section. More drivers coming to blows. Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back here to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors. This is round number 6 of the season, coming to you today from Laguna, Seca. My name is Ron Maunz. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Charles Boshell. Guido Marzucchi is our producer for today's broadcast. Well, Charles, we are going to be here at Laguna Seca all throughout today, and to get up and rolling, we have these Formula Fords. I think the style of racing we're going to have is pretty much as far removed as you could possibly get from the spec racer Fords, as these drivers are already trying to throw me into a panic attack here in qualifying. But Laguna Seca, it's a known quantity compared to some of the other tracks we've been at up to this point in the season, but it still doesn't make it easy.
No, absolutely not. It is a very difficult track. It is one of iRacing's base content, so yeah, everybody gets lots and lots of laps here. If you run consistently, you will have driven Laguna Seca probably in multiple car classes, as we were on board there with Soren Garrett as he goes back to the pits. Very much a known quantity, but it does still present a challenge. Lots of elevation changes, some tricky cornering here, and obviously with that elevation changes, especially in braking zones, make the getting the car stopped a little more difficult. So it is a challenging track for these cars, but obviously these guys run together so much that it's going to be more about just making sure that they keep off each other and make it a clean race, and we'll have some fun with it today.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a fun one, but these drivers are looking around off the first half of this season as well as they possibly can. Been a good season to keep it rolling up to this point, and we've had many different storylines to keep tabs on as well. So I think with that being said, let's take a quick gander at the championship point standings heading into the 6th round of this championship. We'll start off with Spec 1, where Mikey Pollard is your current points leader. 439 points is the tally as right now. You only have to go 7 back, though, to find Felix Samoa. Is a gap at the front between those two, very close. They've kind of broken away and formed their own little battle right now, as they've been able to take some pretty decent victories in the case of Samoa's, and Pollard has just been able to wheel his way up there through consistency and consistency alone. Daniel Tufts, your reigning champion, he was the master of consistency last season, as despite the fact he didn't take a single win in the Spec 1 category throughout Season 2 of 2025, he was able to win the championship regardless. This season, it's kind of the other way around. He's gotten the wins, but it just hasn't had the consistency on his side, which is why he's in third at 319 points. His current tally there. Edward Buchanan and Jerome Rodemaker round at your top 5 in Spec 1. Gonna take a quick gander at Spec 2 now, where Jason Chen has been the dominant force in that category up to this point, nearly already at 100 points, being the gap between himself and Aid Allen in P2. 361 points is his tally right now. Andrew Love slotted right behind Aid Allen in third. Joshua Wilkie, our colleague here at Slow Motion Broadcasting, is slotted in fourth, with Raymond Breakenoff rounding out your top 5 in Spec 2. And we'll take a quick gander at Masters as well, where Antonio Reese is back up towards the top there. 342 is his current points tally right there. Alan Degassis, though, right there to pounce, with only 12 points being the gap between the front two in Masters. May need to keep tabs on that battle throughout the rest of the season. And if those two start to drop back, look at Jeff Wubker behind. We may end up having to talk about a 3-horse race in that Masters class for the championship here in this season. Jim Brewster, Peter Maddox round out your top 5 there, but that's how it looks when it comes to the points. Now with 5.5 minutes left to go here in this qualifying session, Charles, lots of doors that are going to be allotted to these racers, and to break through the doors, you got to have them keys.
You do have to have those keys indeed, Ryan. Here's today's keys to the race. So debris going to be an issue, as these cars, if they get wide, they're going to bring a lot of sand and crap back onto the track. That's going to make for some tricky cornering, some tricky braking possibly. So that'll be one that we'll have to watch out for. Make smart choices on where to pass. There's lots of good hard braking zones on this track. The last corner, the first couple of corners, turn the Andretti hairpin, the final corner as well. But there's a couple of places that you don't want to make passes. The kink, down the Rahal Straight, then into the corkscrew. You can fight through there, but obviously costs you lots of time, and the danger factor is quite high. And then finally, lots of time to be gained and lost in the pit cycle itself. Very tricky entry to the pit area. Very tricky entry coming out of the pits as well into traffic, and that's going to make you potentially you could lose the race just by having a bad pit entry or pit exit. So that is something we'll have to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, and I can appreciate the use of the phrase there at the start, sand and crap. Of course, me with my blunt
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia way, I probably wouldn't say that. I would say sand and shifting is going to be important here in this race. We run on board with Jason Chen, heading his way up the hill around turn number 1, now careening your way into the Andretti hairpin of turn number 2. One of the later additions made to this track back in 1987, they added in this small little infield section, so to speak, to try to track Formula One here. Never came to pass. But here at this track, which is Spanish for dry lake, we are going to see these competitors really try and squabble up. That's turn number 4 that we're seeing Jason Chen run through right now. Real important to try and stay balanced on that limit of control. If you go off into the sand and stuff on the outside, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. This is turn number 5. In my book, one of the more challenging turns around this racetrack. It tightens up out of nowhere. Of all the corners around here, that's probably the one that I've had the most off-track excursions on. If it was second, that would be second to that. Turn number 6, the kink right there. You got that anti-cut curb on the inside, which frankly, these drivers would probably feel more comfortable running over a landmine than that curb. Here's a corkscrew of turn number 7, and that's a screwed up line heading off through there. Jason Chen proving the difficulties heading down into that section of the track. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that that is not the correct way to head off through there, and gonna try and get his bearing straight as he heads his way off through rainy curve of turn number 9. A really fun turn in my books. The truck kind of falls away from you on corner exits. Here's another fun one. Turn number 10. Medium speed. Important to try and get it run. Very similar to turn 4 in a certain sense. Here's a real good overtaking opportunity. Turn number 11. Right at the end of this race, we may see a driver who's feeling particularly brave go for a move heading down in there. The lap record set by Marc Genet back in 2012 in an 03 Ferrari Formula 1 car at a 105.7. But as it stands right now here in this qualifying session, Daniel Tufts, the man that we were talking about being not very consistent thus far this season, he's certainly fast here at Laguna Seca, currently a provisional pole sitter at a 129.9.
Yeah, had a good lap there. Jumped above Sora Garrett's by 1/10.5. Did notice that as you were looking at the championship points, I was looking at the time and scored. Mikey Pollard, our championship leader, not here tonight. So that's going to bring Felix Amoas probably up into the lead if he has a good event. You just see another spin there. If he has a good event, good finish, he'll probably jump up to the top spot at this stage of the season. So you can't let that gap get too big. It's just going to be too difficult to come back from. So we'll see what the championship points looks like next week after this race is over. But it's going to be a story point, I think.
Yeah, so when we get towards the middle point of the season that we're in right now, we have to start shifting away from the early season jitters into talking about that championship discussion, because these drivers are certainly angling themselves as best as they can for that. Following Michael McConnell right now, we were following him as he had his way off through the mid-sector. I think there may be some damage on that race car. The wonderful people there over at the people who supply our graphics here on Slow Motion Broadcasting have done the work to bring in some small little flag graphics that you can see the meatball flag from Michael McConnell. I will say, if I ever got served a meatball that was consistently yellowish orange, I'm not sure I would put it in my mouth personally, but that's just me. I'm not a food critic. Alan DeGassis currently qualified in P10, third of the Masters competitors right now. Let's see if he'll get any sort of improvement. Neither of them do, as it was Jay Ray right behind. The both of them remain in their respective spots. About 10 seconds now left to go here in qualifying. Everybody, with a couple of exceptions, has decided to come down pit lane. So I don't think there's not too much time left in this racetrack for these racers on a rather cool day here at Laguna Seca, it must be said. Temperatures around 69 degrees Fahrenheit, nice for the ambient, and track temperatures only at 82, which compared to the usual Laguna special whereby you can fry an egg on that start-finish line, rather cool.
Yeah, it actually is. That does make for some good racing. That's a really good track temp at 82 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah, it's going to be just prime racing conditions out there today. So yeah, it's going to be, like I said, very interesting races. Qualifying is coming to an end. Everybody should be on their last laps as we see a couple of cars working their way. Get a little bit of pit entry practice, which is always good for Laguna. You don't want to screw up the entry curve there. The Grosjean corner, as I like to call it. And so you don't want to screw that up. And that is, like I said, it's going to be one of those that may be the deciding factor in the race. Is we do have that pit stop that you're going to have to make during this race today, and you could absolutely lose 2 or 3 seconds if you have a bad pit entry, and that may cost you a victory.
And the pit exit as well here. I was tuning into the stuff going on with the IndyCar race weekend right now. Very rare nowadays with my broadcasting schedule that I can tune into actual race cars running on actual racetracks, which is part of the reason why I've watched more baseball than racing, if you discount the disgusting amount of broadcasts I've done up to this point this year. But they have made some changes to Laguna Seca ever since the scan was done, and one of them was actually to replace the dead grass on the inside of the Andretti hairpin of turn number 2 with asphalt. So it makes that pit exit a little bit easier here. But we do not have those changes. As you can see, it is
No.
still that beige grass on that outside line. So the best way I could describe the pit exit here at Laguna Seca, and I think I've said this before, it's kind of like trying to drink scalding hot coffee with a face full of Novocaine. It is not a fun experience heading down into turn number 1 when you're coming out of the pits on cold tires with some brakes that are more susceptible to locking up than they usually would be. Of course, turn 2 going to be a good overtaking opportunity at the start of this race as well. Probably going to see some drivers sneak a wheel down the inside, a wheel or 2 or 3 or 4. I feel like if you snuck 3 wheels down the inside, not the 4th, I'm not sure how that would work physics-wise. But with qualifying in a rearview mirror, we can take a look at the starting grid for today's race and let you know that it will be Daniel Tufts starting this race from the pole position, not only in the Spec 1 category, but overall. That's his 3rd pole this season, the first time since Summit Point. So nice to see the reigning champion back up at the top. Edward Buchanan slotted in P2. Soren Garrett will start this race in 3rd alongside Weekend Warriors veteran Felix Samoas. It'll be Antonio Reese making up an all-Masters row number 3 with Jurg Mani starting alongside. Mario Ras, the South African, will start this race in P7. Jay Ray in 8th. Jason Chen will start this race in P number 9 with Alan Degassis riding out our top 10.
Yeah, starting in P11 is Michael McConnell. Paul Jackson will be on the outside of row 6 and 12th. Josh Wilkie will start 13th. Stevie Ray, the boss around here, will start on 14th. Graham Hunt will start 15th. Jeff Wupker 16th and 7th. And Kevin Adrian will round out your 17 car starting lineup. Kind of a short field today, but good opportunities for a couple of drivers to close up the championship points. As you mentioned earlier, Daniel Tufts with the pole, sitting on pole, and Buchanan sitting on the outside. Both those guys are trying to chase down Pollard and Samoa. So good opportunity for them to make some nice gains today.
And it was a rather interesting qualifying session that we saw there a couple of moments ago, Charles. Obviously, the challenges of this track certainly rearing their ugly head in the case of many drivers up and down the grid. But when you look at our classes, there's a lot of interesting stuff to come out of that session. Daniel Tufts, obviously, as I said, his 3rd pole position thus far this season. He's the only driver, in fact, to grab multiple poles up to this point in the championship. He grabbed the pole at the Red Bull Ring, then the week after at Summit Point, and he gets it done here at Laguna Seca. Spec 2, rather interesting to say this, but that was Jason Chen's first pole position in the Spec 2 category all throughout the season, which is insane because outside of a win for 8 Allen, but I can see in the YouTube chat here on the Slow Motion Broadcasting YouTube stream, outside of 8 Allen winning at Summit Point, Jason Chen has had a clean sweep of the races thus far this season in the Spec 2 category, but that's his first Spec 2 pole here in Season 3 of 2025. Antonio Reese, meanwhile, going to be the highest starting Masters driver since Alan Degassis grabbed the Masters pole at Watkins Glen some weeks ago. But one more thing to raise about this, Charles. We have come off the back of some very draft-heavy races to kick off this season. Alton Park, the Red Bull Ring, Summit Point, Watkins Glen, and Road Atlanta. Now we're in a stretch of races that are going to be a bit more on the relaxed side. So I think driver skill may be going to rear its head a lot more than some of the other draftier races.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you may be right there. We do. Laguna does have a couple a couple of runs where you can get a nice draft, um, especially if you get a good run out of the corner. Obviously the front straight would be one, and then that straight, the Rahal straightaway between the kink and the corkscrew, you can get a nice run up the hill behind somebody. But yeah, this is more of a technical track, so you've got to really be got to be on your toes. You've got to be really smooth on the brakes, and then as well working your way through the corners. You want to get the passes done and dusted before you get through those corners. Again, some of them are just not places you want to try and make moves. So we'll keep an eye on everything as we're getting ready to start our 40 minutes here with the Formula Fords at Laguna Seca.
That green flag's at, and the drivers are on their way. It's a good start from Tufts. He's got to try and pull away from everybody else behind and leave them in his dust. But as they crest the hill, make their way through turn number 1, now into the braking zone of 2. This will be the spot where these drivers try and throw a wheel down the inside. Let's see who's going to make it work. That's Jason Chen trying to make up some moves there in the Spec 2 category. The drivers start this race in P9. He has a dominant run up to this point in the championship. He still wants to gain some more points and round off this first half of the season in style. But at the front, Daniel Tufts getting off to a dream start. Soren Garrett's slotted in P2s. That's a spinner behind. That's Mario Ross. He's spun off the truck in the number 78 car. Big moment down to 4.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the only, everybody else was clean at the start. But yeah, you saw Ross with just losing the rear end coming through 4 and sliding off the track. So he'll have some time to make up.
Yeah, huge setback for the South African. He's down 10 spots now from where he started in this race. He's still out there on the road. He got his bearing straight eventually. He did not tow back the pit lane, but Mario Ross not getting off to a good start in this race at all as we see them head their way through the corkscrew. It's close to the front. Soren Garrett's looking to dip a wheel down the inside into turn number 9. Can't see a driver go for a move like that throughout this race, but you also have to have some stones to try and make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. You really do. It's that is one of those as we get down here into the final corner. Tufts and Garrett's nice and easy through there. So here comes our first draft up through the front straight.
Follow these racers heading their way around this track. It is still your P1 starter of Daniel Tufts holding on to the race lead, at least for now, as he's still feeling the pressure and the burn. A side-by-side fight going on involving the drivers in the Spec 2 category. That's Jason Chen and Paul Jackson battling it out through turn number 2. And look at Josh Wilkie there. He's got to look to try and pick up the pieces. Wilkie yet to win in that Formula Ford category here in Spec 2, but he's looking to try and get it done here side-by-side with himself and Jackson. Down to turn number 4 and book it. He is through into P number 11. Now Paul Jackson got to feel the burn from Graham Rory Hunt and Kevin Adrian right behind. They may be 3 wide. They head their way off into turn number 5. Looks like they get through there rather scot-free, but up at the front, Daniel Tufts leads a pack of about 6 cars as you have to go a little bit farther back from York Monty, your P2 runner of the Masters category, and your P6 runner overall right now. Have to go back 1.5 seconds over that, in fact, to find Jay Ray in P7.
Yeah, it's there's a little bit of a gap there. That's due to Ross's spin, as he's already, he's starting to work his way back. So he's caught the back of the field, and it was a little spin or almost a spin there from Tufts. Good job to catch that car. He's off in the dirt. So I think as we move forward, that gap could stay that way, but I think it's more of a tendency for those gaps to tighten up, especially early on as the cars are nose to tail. You'll get this run here. You may see somebody making a move down here that'll slow the pack up, and we'll see if those gaps will close back up if they'll stay the way they are.
Yeah, and Jay Ray actually sang the fifth lap of the race last time by, so he's here to fight. Currently slotted in 7th. This side-by-side racing going to flare up down to turn number 1 as we take a look at the replay to see what happened to Mario Ross in the number 78 car. Dips a wheel off into the dirt as he heads his way down to turn number 4 and just slides off the track like his wheels are bolted on sideways. You have those moments happen around here. Such a razor-thin margin between using all of the track that's available to you or clipping it off a little bit and being in a world of trouble. Graham Roy Hunt at a moment heading through the final turn. It wasn't a snap into the turn, it was a snap through the turn, and he loses that big time. A quick run through the gravel for the Brit behind the wheel, the 117. And there was some more drama, this time in Spec 2, contact being made with Jason Chen and Josh Wilkin. Oh, the tempers flaring. The front 2 in that category being and banging and roughing each other up. That brought Paul Jackson right back into it.
Yeah, that was very interesting of a battle there. I'm not really sure what happened. If that was maybe just the first incident, maybe kind of caused a chain reaction, where as everybody's trying to get their cars collected, they kept making contact with each other. Maybe a little iRacing glue involved, and so I don't, obviously I don't think there was any intentional wrecking there. But once again, that's not for me to determine. That's for somebody else to figure out after the race is over with. The stewards, I'm sure, will take a look at that post race and issue any penalties if needed.
Yeah, that was just ugly as they had their way off through turn at number 3. On the exit, turn 2 was really where it all kick-started. Those drivers still battling yet again. Wilkie got to ship it off down into turn number 2, and he's come to blows with Stevie Ray. Oh, boy, I am not going to talk about that because I'd quite like to be able to have my job. Let's see this replay. There's Shen.
Ooh.
Oh, a bit of a dive there. They come to blows yet again, and Wilkie trying to get
Oh.
back, rolling contact being made as he tries to get back to the apex. A really ugly series of events there as they had their way off through turn number 2. That section, it's conducive to get some good side-by-side racing heading off through there, but it can also end really poorly. And unfortunately, in a situation like that, it ended poorly.
It really did, and yeah, that was just two cars trying to hit the same spot at the same time, and it just doesn't work. It never does. Probably never will, unfortunately. So, yeah, once again, that'll just be added to the list of things that the administrators will take a look at post race.
And fingers crossed there's no ill feelings towards either of them, because I'll know about you guys. I would quite like to be able to have a show throughout the rest of this season, but
Yeah,
Rick Garrett
sure.
still leads over Daniel Tufts in P2. Edward Buchanan rounds at Euro top 3. I was going to talk about this move from Garrett as we take a look at this replay down to turn number 1, down the inside of Tufts, just down through the gears. Rather commanding stuff there, and Tufts not really fighting that too hard. He wants to pick and choose his battles at this point of the race, and he's saying, you know what? I'm good. I'm all right with losing out some time now, and I'm still in P2, so it doesn't really hurt Daniel Tufts too much. Soren Garrett, so jumping up into the race lead. Those two were trading haymakers a little bit earlier on in the qualifying session as well. We saw Garrett on the pole, then Tufts on the pole as we went through the motions at the start of this broadcast. So I think these two are probably going to be the ones to keep tabs on.
Yep, I think you're absolutely right. And yeah, it was a great pass. It was just late on the brakes under turn 1 and well executed. And I think Tufts was aware of it, did not try and force the issue mid corner, stayed wide and said, we'll fight this a little bit later. And obviously, still plenty of time left. Ooh, as we got Buchanan there, a little loose coming through the corkscrew. It's going to lose that position to Samoa's, drop down into P4. And another spot as well as Antonio Reese comes to the inside, and looks like Jorg Monty's going to follow. So Buchanan, obviously, bad couple of corners there. It's going to fall to the back of this, but still in that lead pack. So still early days yet. Still got 32 minutes and change left in this race. But a tough series of corners there as Buchanan just trying to get his mind reset after that and start headed back in the positive direction.
I was looking through to try and see whether or not Edward Buchanan picked up some sort of slowdown penalty. I didn't see one at the time, albeit I did look a little bit late on in him dropping down like a stone, so there may have been one that I just didn't catch from my eyes. But Buchanan, either way you look at, dropping down from P3 all the way down into P6. That battle right behind these racers is going to be one to keep tabs on, and it'll also decide how this battle for the lead is going to shake out. If those drivers are right in tow, probably not going to see them do this side by side. And a swap of spots into turn number 5. That's Daniel Tufts and Soren Garrett swapping Rue yet again. Here comes Garrett. I thought I was going to fight back down the inside into the kink of turn number 6. I do not think so. That turn is tricky enough single file, let alone side by side.
Yeah, you don't want to pass it in the kink. That's just kind of one of those absolute rules. There's just no place for you to go too wide through there. Somebody's going to end up paying the price for that. So obviously very smart. Because you don't know if it's going to be you or not. So you just want to stay single file through there, try and get you a good run through the kink and try to get the pass done before the corkscrew. That seems to be the best bet.
Yeah, and I think those moves into the corkscrew as well, they can be a little bit marginal because as we saw as we were doing that onboard lap with Jason Chen, it can go wrong very
Mhm.
easily heading off through there. So if you get a move done through there, you gotta get done with authority. And as much as some may think about getting a like an Alex Zanardi-esque move down into the turn on Brian Herta back in 1996, I feel like if these cars have wheel-to-wheel contact, unlike their 90s IndyCar counterparts, there's probably one word to describe how that would end, and actually, no, it would be two: airplane crash.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you just saw it. We saw it just a few minutes ago with Chen and Wilkie. Is once you get that wheel to wheel contact, is what's going to happen more often than not, or you're going to get those wheels where they kind of interlock, going down through the corkscrew. There's just it's going to be one contact after another, until somebody spins or somebody gets hooked, and both cars get collected. So yeah, it's just once again, you want to get the run and get the pass done before you get into the corkscrew, if possible. But once again, it's still very tricky through that section.
Yeah, oh, I thought we were going to see contact there behind between Antonio Reese and Felix Samoas. That was oh so close. I'm not sure if that was just my eyes deceiving me or what, but I saw Antonio look like that back end of the car was made out of jello as he headed his way down into the braking zone of the corkscrew. Nearly saw that contact go on for P3 and P4 runners. We'll note as well, this battle has stretched out a little bit, spaghettified, if you would. So the six-car pack has approached that event horizon of that black hole. Buchanan has really lost touch, and now the gap between Monty and Reese at the top of Masters starting to stretch out over a second as well. Samoa and Reese are still close, about as close as Tufts and Garrett's are, so that's not over yet. As we take a look at a fight involving Alan DeGassis and Jay Ray, that'll be a move from DeGassis to jump his way up into P7, so nicely played from him. We'll say Jason Chen, despite all the drama that's going on in that Spec 2 fight, he's still there to pounce on Paul Jackson, just set his personal best lap of the race last time by at a 131.3. So Jason Chen still here to try and fight for yet another victory.
Yep, absolutely. Doing a good job is staying right with Jackson, to run second in class, and Jackson having a great run they're in the top 10 spot, and capitalizing on the mistakes of others.
See a moment from Kevin Adrian. That's heading through turn number 3. Runs off the track. I think that's Graham Rory Hunt going to try and pick up the pieces there, and it may not have been over. He has his way through turn number 4. You can see that car just skidding around so much through there. And look at that, the run through the carousel, the disgusting, disturbing amount of gravel there on the inside. It looks like someone poured a big bucket of cereal heading through the corkscrew.
Yeah, it does indeed. And I'm going to add some to it as we see. Was that Chen, as Ross as well. Both cars taking opposite lines through the corkscrew. As we see Ross, looks like he was trying to look to the outside here. And yeah, once again, the little curve there, and then a little net code contact maybe between those two cars. And you see both of them having to change their lines a bit and get the car collected, and bringing more of those Fruit Loops back onto the track.
And the Fruit Loops are coming in, or we can actually change the name of whatever cereal that is on the inside of the corkscrew, and any companies that just so happen to produce cereal, if you would like the naming rights to the Corkscrew Crunch, there we go. That would be the name of it, the Corkscrew Crunch. There, that just popped into my head out of the blue. You can tell I whacked my head way too many times since I was a kid. Daniel Tuff still holds on to the lead in front of Soren Garrett's, Felix Samoa, Antonio Reese round out this small little pack of cars. We'll also say that we may see a fight go on involving Jörg Monty and Edward Buchanan. About 0.7 of a second separate those two battling for the final spot inside the top 5, but the front 4 still definitely catching our attention for understandable reasons. You've got the leader in Masters and the battle for the final spots on that overall podium.
Yeah, indeed. And you see the onboard here from Garrett's, both he and Tuff's really good lines through the corkscrew, exactly the way you need to do it. And it is part of that is the good thing about it is track knowledge is that the more you drive it, the easier that is, because the right hander is a bit of a blind corner for the apex. So you want to it's just going to take laps and laps and laps in order to get that right. But the front guys are doing a great job, still Ooh, as we see Chin, and he's around coming out of the final corner. Oh, not necessarily the greatest rejoin in the world as he gets turned back around the proper direction, but good evasion by the car coming through. It might have been Wubker, I think, that came through there as we're going to get on board here. And you can see him just really, and there's that little bit of the inside curb there. And as he's working his way down into that final corner, just carrying a little bit too much speed, gets back on the throttle, and the rear tire saying no, no, no. And yeah, very close there. So, and that's Wubker doing a good job of evasion, and Chin getting the car back around, and now he's going to be fighting uphill for the rest of it. That leaves Paul Jackson up there by himself with a nice, about a 10-second gap over Chin for that Spec 2 win. So Paul's just got to keep the car headed in a straight line for the next 25 minutes, and he's going to get himself some nice points today.
And, you know, as we see these racers begin to have those mistakes pile up, I think we're starting to hear these drivers have that frustration begin to brew. It flashed me back to one time I was doing a broadcast at Laguna, Seca. I forget what league it was for, and I heard a driver, after the broadcast was said and done, fire off, I think it was a 2-minute long tirade, talking about every single reason why he hated this track. And ever since then, it has been burned into my memory. Look at the move there from Soren Gerrits. Tufts runs wide as he heads his way through the Andretti hairpin. Gonna hold on to it with that inside advantage down into turn number 3. But even Tufts not immune from the trouble that these drivers are facing here with some rather not very fantastic conditions as well. You know how I said that the track temperature was rather cool in qualifying earlier on, how you couldn't fry an egg on it? Now I think we're getting up to that point. Track temperatures currently at 103 degrees Fahrenheit, which for context, folks, is 34 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the ambient temperature. That sun in California, I'm pretty sure it would be able to deep fry my skin.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's obviously made a huge difference. The cars are now starting to slide around on the track. Tufts, I think Gerrits has found a little chink in Tufts' armor for that. That he's just a little wide in turn 1. It allows Gerrits to get to the inside. He's already made a pass there once. Looked like he was going to get that. Again, Tufts did a good job on the outside to keep his run going and maintain the position. But, you know, when we get down to the final laps, that may be the opportunity that Gerrits is going to need to take the lead at the end when it matters most and capture the victory. So that's something we'll have to keep an eye on that last couple of laps.
And we have to worry about one more thing as well here, Charles. Another thing to throw the curveball at these racers. We got those pit stops coming up as well. When we get the strategy involved in this race, we're going to see even more drama break down. I'll tell you what, with the amount of drivers that ran off of the racetrack, I just saw 2 more go off heading out of the final turn. I got to feel bad for the people who have to rake the patterns into the gravel traps here, because that's got to be a very thankless job. There's a move from Mario Ross. He's had a wild race up to this point, but still on the comeback tour, currently riding at the top 10, so well done for the driver, the number 78. Jason Chen has also come down pit lane. So, Rise, I brought up that pit strategy discussion. We see that drivers had a very torrid race up to this point to come down pit lane. Your Spec 2 pole sitter, you know, it must have been a curse for him. Every single time he hasn't started from the Spec 2 pole, he's went on to win that race in Spec 2 for the most part, and then he finally starts from the Spec 2 pole thus far this season, and he has been the center of attention, and just about anything that has gone on for him has gone on in this race. It would be enough stories to share that he could probably share it around a campfire.
Yeah, and as we were sitting there talking, I was thinking about the fact that we're seeing these cars slide around a bit. Lots of cars going off track. We'll have to worry about our incident points as well later on in this race. It's real easy to pick up X's here, so it may be that you don't want that drive-through penalty when you get to 13X. So you may see some cars changing their lines a little bit, maybe slowing down a little bit just to try and keep the car on the track and not pick up that drive through, because obviously you're going to lose all your track position by that extra run down pit lane, because it's very long and very slow, and you're going to lose quite a bit of time. I just was looking at Jason Chin's pit stop, 54 seconds total from cone to cone, and you're going to lose a little time on entry and exit as well. well, especially entry, because the cone is after you get through a corner, that final corner ends. So it is one of those that you're going to keep an eye on, and you definitely don't want to pick up the drive through here.
Yeah, don't want to have any sort of pit lane infraction, whether it be speeding down the pits. Of course, these cars do not have a pit lane speed limiter, so we always have to run the risk of something like that going down. Have to worry about the entry, have to worry about the exit as well. There's really no pit lane in the racing world that is like Laguna Seca. I'm not sure whether that's an insult, a compliment, neither or both. I think it's just a statement of fact. Daniel Tufts still leads over Garrett in front of Samoas, in front of Reese. Looking to see these drivers in the top 6. Will any of them make that call to come down pit lane? They will not. And you know, Charles, over the past couple of weeks here in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors, we have seen these racers go for some rather off-the-wall strategies. Not really seeing that here in this race, but I'll touch back on that in just a couple of moments' time. For now, though, we take a look at a replay. This is Kevin Adrian. He has his way up the Rahal straight into the corkscrew. Not the first driver we've seen have a moment through here, and just loses it through the first part as that track falls away. The grip falls away too.
It really does, and that's the thing that's going to happen more often than not. If you carry too much speed through the first part of the corkscrew, it's just the rear tires can't comply with what you're asking for them, and it's just, you see that spin so often. I've done that probably 1,000 times here, just because it is that difficult as we're at the halfway point of the race.
Officially past the halfway mark now. 19 and a half minutes left to go here in this 40-minute long race. Buchanan and Monty swapping through a little bit farther behind. They've completely lost touch of this battle, but they've still got their own little fight to keep themselves entertained. As we are now past that halfway mark, we have to worry about a matter of when these pit stops go on, not if. I have a feeling it may be going on soon. Jeff Wubker, he's made the call to come down pit lane. Have seen a slow trickle of drivers make that call to come down pit lane. It's really resembled more of an incontinent poodle than anything else, but it may turn into a torrential flood here in the not too far off future.
Yeah, let's not talk about slow trickle. He had a bad race last week at Bathurst. So we got a black flag from Jason Chin. So wonder what that's all about.
Probably incidents.
Maybe at the instant point, because he's already had a couple of contacts with other cars. So he may have hit the incident limit already to have to come down and serve and do his drive through. But yeah, it's, we haven't talked about this, but it's, if you want to get a context, the going through the corkscrew is like driving off the roof of a 5-story building and heading straight down, as we're going to get the replay here from Jason Chin coming around the final couple of corners. And yeah, just run wide. And that's, I'm sorry, that was turn 4. So yeah, real easy to run wide there. And that was going to be, lucky number incident 13 for Jason, so have to come out and drive through.
Yeah, tough moment for him. He's not slotted in P13. He's in P14 right now, but that will continue to drop down, although it would be fitting if he wasn't 13th, because he has not had a He has not had a pit to hiss in when it comes to luck thus far in this race. That was a brilliant move from Soren Garrett to take the race lead. Now Daniel Tufts looking to try and fend off a challenge from Felix Samoas right behind. Starting to see these racers turn up the wick, which I think is an indicator that we will be seeing them come down pit lane here in a couple of laps time. That's usually how it rolls. Garrett going for that move down into the corkscrew. That may be the spot to get the move done to try and take the win at the end of this race, but he's certainly doing himself some favors right now, trying to pull out as big of a gap as he can. These racers now finally, they've been in that section of the race where they've just been running calm, running tame, not really pushing the limits too much. Now, as those pit stops near, they are going to start to burn up their tires, burn up their stuff, and try and get some moves done.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to replay here of Garrett's working his way to the outside, coming up the Rahal straight. And he's going to be late on the brakes, really late on the brakes. Nicely done. Able to take that on the outside. Then it swaps over to the inside and completes that pass. A very nice move there by Garrett. He's had a couple really brilliant moves today already, just making passes. But unfortunately, Tufts has had the measure of it and was able to get back to the lead. But yeah, we're coming up probably the last 5 or so minutes here before we see all these cars come in for their pit stop.
So getting into crunch time, Jason Chen yet to serve that black flag. The quote was, he's had such bad luck in this race, he really has not had a pit to hiss, and it's like the filled-in
Mhm.
snake pit at the zoo, because that is what we can say on the air compared to the other word that I nearly said that we cannot. Soren Garrett's still leading over Tufts, in front of Samoa's, in front of Reese. Will we see one breakaway? We will see
Yep.
one breakaway. It's a one at the back. That's Antonio Reese making that call to come down pit lane. I was just going to raise the discussion of maybe those racers breaking away and coming into the pits at completely different times. So Antonio Reese going to be the first to box. We will see these top 5, everybody else who hasn't made that call to come down pit lane, come in soon, as a black flag for Graham Rory Hunt has to be for incidents as well. He's had a wild
Mhm.
race in his own regard. These
Yep.
drivers picking up those incident point black flags like Pokemon cards.
Yeah, really, you're absolutely right. As we're going to be back on board here with the replay of Graham Hunt as he's working his way down into. Oh, it's coming up into the corkscrew, and we're gonna see a spin here. We are indeed, that's a 2x to add to the total, and that's going to be enough to send him down pit lane for his first time, and then again for his second time. He has yet to pit, so he's going to have to come in and get his drive through done or his pit stop done, and then vice versa over the next couple of laps. Is worth the 25-minute mark now.
Yeah, so now in the final 15 minutes, gonna start to see some more drivers make that call to pit. More dust getting kicked up in the air as they head their way off through the corkscrew crunch serial. They need to make that. They
Mhm.
absolutely need to make that a real thing. I would be willing to pay up to $5 to take a bite of something like that. Garrett's, Tufts, and Samoa's not going to come in this time by. Will Buchanan and Monty, they will not either. So looks like Antonio going to not really be the trendsetter. He's going to have a much earlier stop than these racers, at the very least. 2 laps early, I should say, for that stop. These 3 still running at pretty good pace, and Buchanan just set the best lap of the race last time by to 1:30.3. So I don't think these drivers are really struggling for performance at the present moment. Not trying to save a lot of fuel. They're just gunning it towards the end and probably going to be eyeballing a stop. I would have to say the latest we'd see a pit stop would probably be around the minute 34 mark.
Yeah, and I think that's pushing. I don't think they're going to be able to get that far, but yeah, it's going to be. It's usually, as we always say, between the 30 and 33, 34 minutes. I'm probably leaning more closer to the 30 than I am 34. But I was going to say, Antonio came in by himself from P4. He was running in fourth pretty much the entire time, and really wasn't putting a lot of pressure on the guys in front. So maybe he's done a little bit of fuel saving. And I don't think it's a bad strategy here to come in by yourself. I don't think there's any real disadvantage to a solo pit stop. Should have clean track, both on entry and exit, and then you get some clean air to run by yourself. As he's 7.5 seconds behind Paul Jackson in 11th after his pit stop. So I think he made a pretty smart call to just go ahead and come in. Now Samoa's is coming in as well.
Yeah, so Felix Samoa is making that call to come down pit lane here, and you're exactly right there, Charles, talking about the fact that this is a racetrack where you can go in for those rather early stops and not have to worry about track position on your exit too much. As we take a look at the swapperoo, that's Mario Ross getting that move done rather commandingly so on Michael McConnell, heading up the hill down into the corkscrew. So Ross making up another spot. Had that moment not happened for him, heading down into turn number 4 at the very start of this race, I think that number 78 car may have been one to keep tabs on all throughout this race. Would love to see him come back here in the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors world. Would love to see all these racers return as the other
Yeah.
series rocks up in 1 week's time, staying in California, but swapping out the tight and twisty nature of a natural terrain road course to the tight and twisty nature of the downtown street course there in Long Beach. So all the actions to look forward to here on Slow Motion Broadcasting all throughout the rest of Season 3 here in 2025. Kevin Adrian, he's come into the pits in the number 10, waiting for these 2 to make that call to box. We'll say Antonio Reese about 1.2 seconds back of Felix Samoes, who's out and away, currently occupying the final spot inside the top 10. So I'm not sure if that undercut worked out too well for him. I think those 3 were just able to maintain their pace so well up at the front that they were just uncontested and not really throwing haymakers at each other too much. They understood the assignment and just kept it clean. And I think these front 2 know that as well, as
Oop,
there
there's
comes
Garrett.
Garrett's the pit.
Yep, Garrett's into the pits, and yeah, he'd gotten past Tufts again, probably through turn 1 and 2. That seems to be a little bit of maybe a weak corner there for Tufts. Garrett's able to make passing there fairly easily, but now he's in the pits, gives Tuff the lead, and a nice gap back to Jorg Monty, who's still yet to pit. And I think we've got 5 cars left. Tufts Monty along with Jay Ray, Michael McConnell and Paul Jackson and Graham Hunt as well, but he's already served the drive-through, so he'll come in for his pit stop here very soon as well.
And perfect time for something like this to go on as we see those pit stops continue on here in this race. Daniel Tufts probably going to be eyeballing a pit stop next time by. Unfortunately, I'm doing with some light technical issues here, Charles. It's okay if I can pass it off to you here real quick while I try and get these settled.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we'll keep on board here with Tufts as he's got, like I said, 4-second lead over Monty. Jay Ray, 10 seconds behind Monty, sitting in third. McConnell and Jackson as well, still yet to pit. Soren Garrett's down in sixth after his pit stops. He had a good run, 12.4 stop time, which was about a second and a half faster than Samoa's, and at least a half second faster than Antonio Reese and Ed Buchanan, the other battlers up at the front of the field. So Garrett's was a very, very short stop, so he's going to play a little bit of fuel strategy game here, which may be okay as long as he stays behind a car. He can kind of little lift and coast. And we've got Jorg Monty coming into the pits now for his stop of the race, and so that's going to give Tufts just some nice clean room. I think I saw some laugh traffic coming up in front of Daniel. Can't see it on the screen now, but it looked like there might have been a couple of cars that were off the pace bit. There we go. Yep, Jeff Wubker, just about 2 seconds ahead. So see if Tufts decides to, if he manages to get up to Wubker, if he's going to come in. It may just be a moot point. He may have to come in anyway, as we're almost at the 31-minute mark of the race. So it may be that tank may be dry for Daniel. So it may be time for him to come in, as everybody has made their stops with the exception of Tufts, Ray, and Jackson. And once again, I think those cars will be coming in as well. As you see, Antonio Reese there, right behind Felix Samoas and Soren Garrett. So that group is still there. Antonio a little bit further back, still within that 1 second. So he should be able to hang on to that little bit of draft that they're going to have during the course of the lap, and be able to make up that stagger in fairly easily, I think. Jorg Monty dropped down to 7th, 4.5, almost 5 seconds back behind Reese, and with Ed Buchanan in tow as well. So we've got a nice little battle there that'll be shaping up here with the final few minutes left, as our leader is now into the pits.
And Daniel Tufts, perfect time for me to come back. Daniel Tufts now making that call to come down pit lane. This will give the race lead to Jay Ray if he decides to stay out for one more lap here in the number 12. Let's follow him as he has his way down to the pits. Here we go. So that will be Paul Jackson now inheriting the race lead if he stays out here. Survey says so. Every single time I've said that, the driver has immediately made come down pit lane. So we'll see Paul Jackson come in 3, 2, 1. There we go. I actually called it. First time I've ever predicted anything that actually worked out in my entire broadcasting career. The front 3 coming down pit lane. Garrett's and Samoa's running right nose to tail. We look to see that car of Daniel Tufts down in pit lane. He's on pit exit right now. There he is, cresting the hill through the kink. He still has to worry about this tight and twisty pit exit, but I think it's looking pretty all right for him to be at least within striking distance of those front 2 of Garrett's and Samoa's. Let's see. Oh, yeah. He's going to be able to take the race lead. There we go. Daniel Tufts going to shake out well. Now 1.2 second gap, which is by no means insurmountable here in this race. So Tufts will still have to keep on his best behavior, dance that car around this racetrack as well as he can if he wants to hold on to it and maybe even extend that gap. These cars not really known as being the biggest draft cars in the world, but they do have a strong draft. And even though this track isn't one that is draft heavy, you still got that start finish stretch, the Rahal straightaway, and some of the other longer flat out parts of this track that may cause those cars to just get vacuum sealed back together.
Yeah, absolutely. As you already see, Antonio Reese has made up the gap back to Samoa, so he's back in the pack. Tufts was able to get that lead. He was actually a 10th slower for his stop time in the pits, but he was overall 1 second faster than Garrett's from cone to cone. So great job on pits for Daniel Tufts, and it's gave him a 1 second lead, and now it's going to be up to Garrett's and company to make chase.
Yeah, and the chase is still very much on at the front of this field, but Garrett and Samoas kind of have to work together along with Antonio Reese, form a brief truce if they want to try and catch up to Daniel Tufts and really start giving that driver the number one car a bit of a headache. Still very quick. Antonio Reese clocking in the fastest lap of the race at a 1 minute 30.166. So Antonio still very fast. Your current Masters leader as it stands right now. Paul Jackson leads in Spec 2. York Monty and Buchanan, they have a swapperoo. That's a battle for fifth at the present moment. Those two were involved in this pack a little bit earlier on in this race, then started to drop back, and now they have their own little squabble going on right there. That's a running wide moment from Garrett. That's through turn number 4. Not going to help him out too much when it comes to closing in that gap with himself and Daniel Tufts, but there's still time left to go. But as much as there is time left to go, about 5.5 minutes of time to be a bit more precise, these drivers may need to think about trying to figure out any way in the book to reel in Tufts, because, I mean, they say that catching up is one thing, overtaking is another, but you can't overtake if you can't catch up.
That's true. Absolutely true. Is so far Tufts is doing a good job of maintaining that gap about 1 second back to Garrett's. So he's running some good laps. So obviously we'll keep an eye on our lap times as we go. You can see it on the screen. You'll know when they get close. As we're seeing Buchanan is starting to fight with Monty a little bit for that 5th position. Obviously, Buchanan wants to get as many points as he can with our championship leader Mikey Pollard out today, so every point is going to be beneficial. But Tough still hanging in there with a 1 second gap over the rest of the group.
And Daniel Tufts, as much as he's not really involved in that championship battle as it stands right now, he wants to end off the first half of the season the way he started it, that being a trip into victory lane. He holds on to that 1.2 second gap as it stands right now. Samoas and Reese running right behind, still right there within striking distance, trying to pounce, trying to find any way to pounce as well. Mario Ross has picked up a black flag, so bad stuff there for the driver, the number 78, was talking about how well of a race he's put together, and really has, but as a result of some of that side-by-side racing he was involved in, occasionally ending poorly, he's going to have to come down pit lane, serve that drive-through penalty. That'll be just about a game ender for him. Currently slotted in P13, will likely drop down at the very least 1 spot as a result of this penalty. Heartbreaker for him. Would like to see him return, just a very unfortunate series of events for him here at Laguna Seca. But these front 4, mainly just being 1 and 3, I'm not really seeing the spark that I would want to out of these 3 that we have on screen right now to really make that leap to catch up to Tufts.
No, I would agree, and I see Samoas is starting to look around a little bit, trying to see if he can find a place to get past Garrett's. Maybe he feels like he's got a little more pace at this point of the race than Garrett's does, and he's ready to start making his charge up to the front. But they are starting to close down a little bit, especially on these straightaways. You kind of see the gap close a couple of tenths of a second as these 3 cars together make a little more aerodynamic through those long straights, and able to close up just a bit. So we see Monty and Buchanan still fighting. Buchanan still hanging on there. Ooh, a little correction there coming out of 2 to keep that car headed the proper direction. And I think we're coming up to the white flag next lap. So we'll keep an eye on this front group as Tufts is still maintaining 0.8 tenths of a second lead over Garrett's in P2.
It's still very close between all of these racers, but now 7/10 of the gap between Tufts and Garrett. If there's a time to pounce for the number 21, it has got to be now. That's a running wide moment from Samoas at a 6. Not going to help out his causes at all there. But Daniel Tufts, if he can hold on to that same sort of gap, he's going to be golden right towards the end. These drivers behind running out of time to try and mount a challenge to make their way up into those top spots. And for Daniel Tufts, this would be a very well-earned 3rd win of this season. Last time he visited victory lane was at Summit Point some weeks ago, so this would be a welcome return for him. Skipped down on a couple of rounds, and it would help him out a lot when it comes to that championship point situation as well. It'd probably help him out a little bit more if Antonio Reese maybe loses out on a spot at the end of this race as well. But regardless, Daniel Tufts doing everything he needs to do to try and maximize his day here at Laguna Seca with a white flag in the air. I think it may have been borderline there.
Yep,
I think they just barely missed by a couple of seconds.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I was going to say probably within 5 seconds, but yeah, looks like we're going to have two more laps, and that does not necessarily bode well for our top two, Tufts and Garrett's, as they were significantly quicker on their pit stops than the rest of the group. So obviously, fuel strategies may play out here as we saw Garrett take that inside curve. You don't want to do that too often as you're coming through turn three. That is not the corner that you want to try and take, or any of those inside anti-cut curbs. That just don't play well with these Formula 4 cars.
Yeah, I think curbs and open wheel cars go together about as well as peanut butter and cyanide. So really don't expect that to be a good duo, regardless of what kind of race car, what kind of racetrack it is. We follow some of these racers all throughout this field. Jeff Webker essentially running all by his lonesome as it stands right now. We'll see if the white flag is in the air. It is not. So
Nope.
that was very, very close. And when we think about these close calls between the white or the checkered, we have to worry about that fuel situation as well. Some of these racers may cut a little bit tight. Hopefully, we don't see anybody running out of fuel. The white flag will be in the air this time by as we jump back to the race leaders heading their way on the start-finish straightaway. The white flag in the air for Daniel Tufts. Now, one more lap of racing action for him. And looking through at the pit stop lengths, I think if anybody is safe to go when it comes to fuel, it would probably be Felix Samoa's in third. Daniel Tufts spent the most amount of time, actually second least amount of time down pit lane compared to these front four, the second most being Antonio Reese and the least being Garrett's, but it was rather marginal between some of those drivers right now, so not going to worry about that too much. Kevin Adrian, though, will say he's picked up a black flag, apologizing for something in the iRacing chat, so there may have been something bad for him, as Monty has also gone off the track in that P6 running car right now, the number 925, dropping down like a stone. Tough break for him here in this race. Daniel Tufts, though, with a 7/10 of a second gap as he has his way down into turn number 6 for the last time. Looking good for him. I think the battling will pretty much just be between Garrett's and Samoa's if Tufts can keep it clean.
Yep, I think you're absolutely right. I don't know unless Tufts makes a mistake here into the corkscrew or through it. I think that it's going to be a battle here as we see Samoa's on the outside run there making that pass. And Reese is going to try and go with him.
Yeah, and Antonio Reese looking to follow and suit sweep around the outside of turn number 9. Close a contact as they had their way through there. Looks like it will be Garrett's holding on to that spot, at least for now. They still have the final hairpin to try and contend with. Could be a good overtaking opportunity for Reese as he's looking for a move around the outside of Garrett's, sweeping through. But as that battling's been going on, it wasn't a battle up in the front that the drivers behind wanted, but it's what Daniel Tufts wanted to win this race. There's a checkered flag for him. He is victorious. Antonio Reese rounds out your podium. Garrett's, yeah, he must have run out of gas right at the end, loses out on a half a second to Reese, and last lap 133.8, so clearly something slightly sour with that number 21 car. We jump throughout the rest of this field. Reese, of course, your winner in the Masters category. Waiting now to see Paul Jackson come across the line in the Spec 2 category. The driver of the 229 yet to visit victory lane. He'll become only the third driver thus far this season to win it in the Spec 2 class and join the One Winners Club with himself and Aid Allen being a part of it. But there's Paul Jackson. He weathered the storm in a very chaotic Spec 2 class to grab the checkered flag at the end of this race here, Charles. A race that we were expecting to be a bit more of a strategy game. As much as it turned out to be that case up at the front, there were still some drivers throwing haymakers at each other a little bit farther behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I went back to look and just couldn't tell. Garrett took very, very narrow line coming through that final corner and jumped the curb. So I don't know if it was a slowdown or he ran out of fuel in that final corner, but obviously losing that final podium position to Antonio Reese there on the final corner of the race is a tough pill to swallow as Mario Ross comes around to finish off his race. He's going to pick up a 13th, but obviously has some really good pace in the car, and he just having a little fun there. I think he is. So, just kind of basically dug himself a hole early on that little spin on lap 1, and then just couldn't do anything with it as we're going to get a replay here. Coming through the corkscrew, we got Garrett's there. It's still in third. Let's see if we're going to find out if it's going to be a slowdown or if this is going to be an out of fuel situation here.
Yeah, let's just listen into this car as he has his way into the final turn here real quick. Yep. You can hear that car sputtering right as he comes out of the final turn. I was thinking, like, okay, it sounds at rather full song as he heads his way down to turn 11, but as soon as he came out of it, that car sputtering as he came across the line. Didn't grind to a halt, though, so does that still count as a Thompson Trophy? I'll have to wait for approval there. Great minds think alike there, Charles. But that's how it shakes out at the end of this race here at Laguna. Seca will load him up here in a couple of moments. I'm going to let you know that at the end of this race, your race winner will be Daniel Tufts, the Brit in the one car, gets his third checkered flag of this season. He is victorious. 0.7 of a second at the line between himself and Felix Samoza in P2, with Antonio Reese rounding out the podium in third. It'll be Soren Garrett in fourth, Edward Buchanan in P5, Jorg Mani in sixth, Jay Ray in seventh, and Alan Degas's class in P8, Michael McConnell in ninth, Paul Jackson wins in the Spec 2 class, rounding out your overall top 10, Jason Chen in P11, Jeff Wubker in P12, Mario Ross in 13th, Kevin Adrian in P14, Graham Hunt, Josh Wilkie, and Stevie Ray round out the cars classified at the end of this race. But Charles, looks like we got some drivers up there in the interview waiting area. I'll let you have first dibs on who you want to chat with first.
Well, let's talk to our race winner, Daniel Tufts. Let's bring him in and have a conversation. Daniel, congratulations on the race victory today. First time back into, or actually first time back for a few weeks as a race winner. Had it been a bit of an up and down season for you this season? Daniel, are you there? Hello, Daniel.
Hello,
I don't hear him either.
Oh,
there we go. There we go. No, Daniel, congratulations. First time back to the winner circle in a few weeks. It's been kind of an up and down season for you this season. So talk about your race. It had a pretty good battle up there with Soren Garrett for most of it.
Yes, sorry, I can hear now. It was an interesting race. I kind of half tried to save fuel every time he went past me, but sometimes I was just like, I got an opportunity, I might as well take it. It was mostly just keep in line, keep it on track, and then hard race at the end. But I got the 1 second gap, which surprised me because I thought that everyone had good pace, but that second buffer was pretty handy.
Yeah, absolutely. We did see Garrett's kind of choke at the end there as running out of fuel coming out of the final corner. Yours was very close as far as pit stop time as well. So you did a little better job than you realized on that fuel save at the beginning.
Yeah, I was watching my fuel levels, and I just made sure I was lifting coasting quite a lot. I was sputtering across the line though, so any more and I would have been the same result.
All right, so it is so last season you were pretty much Mr. Consistency. You didn't have any race victories, but you always were up to the front and battling for race wins, and that enabled you to win the championship. This season, not so much. It's been kind of an up and down season for you. Is there anything you can attribute to
that? Just a bit of bad luck in a few late race battles. I think Austria, I had that issue. I bumped the curb and I just snapped across. And then it was Road Atlanta. I had the had to come together with Mikey on the last chicane. And then I missed one for Goodwood. So
yeah, hey, you know what? That's a good reason to miss a race. I would have took that as well. So next week we go from a tight and twisty road course to a tight and twisty street course at Long Beach. So what are your thoughts about that?
I think I need to practice missing those walls. It's going to be pretty hectic around there, especially on that main straight. Into the first corner. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Daniel, congratulations again. We'll let you give any thanks for shout outs before we let you go to celebrate.
Yeah, thanks Stevie for setting us up, and thanks to you for the broadcast. They were great.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Daniel. Congratulations.
Thanks.
That was Daniel Tufts, our race winner. And take him back out. And I think Ron is still having technical difficulties, so I'll just continue on. Let's bring Antonio in here, our Masters class winner, and we'll have a chat with him. Get him down here. Antonio, congratulations, another Masters class victory. And, P3 overall with the late race pass of Garrett's there at the end. So talk about your race. It looked like pretty standard fare for you, just not a lot of battling and just kind of keeping your nose clean.
Hello, Charles. Hello, everyone. I was just trying to not doing many mistakes and still trying to keep there with the guys on the front group. So it was nothing special, but it was very hard to keep the car alive all the laps, all the corners.
Yeah, we were noticing that the track temp really ramped up after qualifying, and it was quite warm during the race session. It was over I think 40 degrees or something like that Celsius.
Okay.
So yeah, it was made. I'm sure it made for some very, very tricky conditions here.
Yeah. I didn't actually notice too much difference. I didn't also check the temperature. Usually I check the track temperature when we jump from the qualify to the race, but today I forgot to check that. So I was feeling quite comfortable, so I was not too much worried.
Well, there you go. So Laguna Seca this week, Long Beach next week. Obviously, you've got quite a bit of experience in these Weekend Warriors races at Long Beach. So, what are your thoughts getting ready for that race?
Oh, it's a track that I like. So it's very more dangerous than Laguna Seca because we have the walls all the way through the lap. So we have to avoid those walls every time. But yeah, it's a fun track to drive. I will enjoy driving it. Yeah.
Well, awesome, Antonio. Once again, congratulations on your class victory today, extending your championship lead. And so we'll let you give any thanks or shout outs and let you go celebrate.
Yeah, thanks for you guys, for you, Charles, Guido, and Ron, and Adam, Slow Motion Broadcast, and Steve Ray for the top guy. The one I thank you the most. And also, I don't know if you have a sponsor. Who is the sponsor, and for the drivers, for the community, I always keep saying the same things. It's what I really like to. Like what, Guido?
Guido telling him it's boring to have him here week in and week out. I think he should be part of the broadcast team, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe one day. Okay, guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Antonio. And by the way, the sponsor this week is an anonymous donor has sponsored the race this week. So we thank them very much.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Antonio. We'll see you. Are you running the spec racer coming up?
Yeah. I will be driving the spec. Yes.
All right. Well, we'll see you in just a few minutes then.
Okay. Come on, swingers.
All right, thanks.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that was Antonio Rees.
Hey, welcome back, Ron.
Yeah, so sorry about that. The technical issues still dogging me at the present moment. I'll tell you what, if they don't get resolved for the Spec Racer Fords, Antonio may have to come in and do my job for me coming up later on this afternoon. But Charles, a fantastic race here from the FF Weekend Warriors Long Beach, though, in 1 week's time. That is going to be probably even more of a test of these drivers' skill and patience than today's race was.
It really will be. Long Beach is such a difficult track. I know. I think most people actually enjoy driving the track. I don't know if they necessarily like racing in a race at the track because it is such a difficult street circuit to run. Very, very tight. Not a lot of room for mistakes. So yeah, hot lapping's great. Maybe racing not so much, but it always puts on a good show. And I expect us to have us a nice big field for next week to run Long Beach.
And really looking forward to that race. And of course, you can tune into all of the action here on Slow Motion Broadcasting week in and week out, day in and day out. The Weekend Warriors every single Saturday and Sunday. Saturday with the FEs, Sunday here with the Formula Fords and the Spec Racer Fords. We've got another great Spec Racer Fords race look later on this afternoon. That'll be at this exact same racetrack, and hopefully all of you will be able to tune into that as well. But as for this broadcast here for week number 6 of the Formula Ford Weekend Warriors here at Laguna in a Seca, I think that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Maunz, Charles Boshell joining me in the commentary booth, and Guido Marzucchi doing a wonderful job working on the cameras and the graphics inside of the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for tuning into this broadcast here on Slow Motion Broadcasting today, and we hope to see you all for that Spec Racer Ford race coming up later on this afternoon.